Will there ever be world peace? Has there ever been world peace? Or are we heading towards yet another war, maybe a world war? Well, from my experience, and I've been practicing or exploring even different spiritual paths, traditions, mainly in the Hatha Yoga tradition, and I've been involved in many mass meditations for peace, for world peace, and I'll be honest with you, these days I've got the feeling it's, in a way, it's a sugar-coated spirituality. It's a nice idea, but it's not really a living, working reality. And why is that? Well, for one, we've always been at war. If you look at the history books, it's really the wars that make up most of the history, and it was written by the conquerors afterward. And in Europe, and there was a lot of viewers over in the States, but in Europe, the earliest European mummy preserved human being, Otzi, which they call the Iceman, who was found up in the Austrian Alps. And this is, I think, 3,500 years BC, so a long, long time ago, when Europe, when the world was a much more spacious place. There were a lot less people there. There was a lot less competition. And yet, when they studied this, and if you're interested in history and things like that, please look at Otzi. They studied his mummified body. Amazing, really. There's still the contents of his stomach and his clothing and his rucksack that he fashioned. But anyway, they're looking for the way that he died, and it took them some time. And it was, I think it was a German scientist that sort of turned him over and discovered a great big arrowhead in his back, and there was all these wounds on his body. So the conclusion was that he had come to a bad end. He'd been murdered. And so, you know, this is what are the chances? I thought about that. What are the chances of finding the earliest human mummified remains and he'd been murdered? So it's been part and parcel of mankind, humankind, from the very dawn of our existence. In fact, not just in the human world, I'm sat here now in nature, and nature is constantly in competition. We hear the birds singing, but there's a desperate territorial battle going on. And so competition, conflict is part and parcel what comprises the world. But is that the full picture? No, it is not. And I can say this, no, it is not. We don't just have to give in to the wars, to the violence, just following whatever particular agenda is on offer. Now, I've not always lived such a spiritual life. I grew up in the 1970s, and a little bit of my backstory, some of the places that I grew up in, you needed to stand up for yourself. So many times, and I never look for trouble myself, but many times I find myself having to physically fight. And these days, when I think about it, it's horrific, really, horrific to have to physically inflict pain upon somebody, to stop them inflicting pain upon yourself. Outrageous, really. So what I'm saying is, I've experienced at first hand what it feels like to be hurt. And I wonder, and maybe this is a little bit of an aside, I wonder when I see all these people from their armchairs or online clicking on about we need to fight these, we need to fight that. I wonder how many people have actually been punched in the nose and really felt just a punch in the nose, how that impacts upon you physically, but also mentally and emotionally. It's easy to talk about war and the glories of war when the living reality is it's a desolate, it's a horrendous act, war. So what do we do? Well, as much as we try, we can vote for different parties and people. And I know a lot of people, you know, in the States, there's a lot of voting going on. In the UK here, we've just had a new government, and round the world, if I'm quite frank, it doesn't seem to make much of a difference who is in charge. There's still this agenda. I'm not going to go into this. I'm no expert on geopolitics or the mechanics behind the war industry. But what can we do? Well, we can, for ourselves, we can experience, we can explore the peace, the contentment that resides within. And that's why I share these things. That's why I have my daily practice. It's to connect, if you like, with my higher self, with our higher selves. There's this aspect of ourselves that's beyond the mind, beyond the fear, which all these things, emotions tend to motivate towards aggression, war, violence, fear, hatred, jealousy. Now, transcending them, and it's a big ask to transcend them, but give yourself the opportunity to just maybe be quiet, to sit with yourself, to experience the movement of your breath, to feel the beat of your heart. And there is within us all an infinite ocean of calm, of clarity, of serenity. It's within us all. And maybe if we explore, if we experience this inner calm, this inner peace, if we experience, let me say, the love, well, then we can inspire maybe some of the people around us. So don't give up. Well, don't give up upon yourself, and the world moves as the world moves. My own personal musings upon this is there's always going to be a percentage of the population that cultivate war, that follow war. But there's always been a percentage, maybe a smaller percentage of the population that inquire. The musicians, the artists, the spiritual inquiring people that ask themselves, is this what it's all about? And maybe that, in a way, is what separates us from the competition that you see in nature, that we can witness our thoughts, our feelings, our emotions. We're not just genetically prone or programmed to fight, to conquer. We have an aspect of ourselves that's unique. So let me know what you think. These are my musings. I always say, question everything. And if you like what I say, if you like the video, the content, please like it. Share it if you want to. Subscribe if you want to help me to continue promoting and cultivating this channel. So, well, thank you for listening to my musings, and I wish you the peace, the contentment that resides within us all, and maybe like a ripple that will radiate to some of the people around you. Thank you.